All right, welcome to the Take Your Health Back Now podcast. Today, we're going to jump into therapeutics and this big buzzword kind of coming out in 2026, and then dive into what that really means, kind of what you should be looking out for this year, what's being pushed. We do these types of topics at the beginning of the year pretty commonly, and this is a huge topic. So there's going to be a lot of things that we go over, and we might even bump this into a couple of more podcast episodes where we dive into particulars, but this is going to go into that big overarching idea and why it's bad. So this should be a really interesting topic that everyone should listen to.
Right.
I have a lot to say today. All right. So if you've never watched our podcast or been part of our community, we are the co-founders of the Take Your Health Back Now system. We've got Kendra Duquette. I'm Jenny Wise. Through that system, we have a couple of programs. Our main focus is training preventative health practitioners. So you can get certified to have your own business, have your own clients, work from a root cause approach to create real health and true lasting wellness instead of these band-aid or biotech quick fixes that we're going to jump into today. So if you're interested in that, check out our links, get in touch, subscribe, so you can hear more from us, and enjoy.
Yes. Okay. So I have lots of notes because this is huge, you guys, and we need to share it with everyone. And a big piece of why this is so huge is because the natural health space, the space that we are in, that Jenny and I are in, the practitioners have taken this and run with it because I think they never have thought about the sourcing. They're just looking at the words that are being thrown out there. Um, so
Right.
we'll kind of go over that as well. And that is why this is so important because it's booming as we walked into 2026. I could not believe how we're in 2025 and then we stepped into 2026. It was like whoa, and it just exploded. But it's really so bad and scary actually. So I just wrote down, I just wanted to mention, okay, so we're going to try to talk about peptides as our focus. We'll try to stay focused. We're really talking about therapeutics, but we'll focus in on peptides today. But last year it was all about Ozempic, right? All of a sudden everybody got on Ozempic or,
All the GLP ones, yeah.
which are peptides. Um, but people knew that it was a pharmaceutical and it was to
Right.
lose weight or originally it was for diabetes, but everybody jumped on the bandwagon to lose weight. Then as we move into 26, all of a sudden the words that are being thrown around, okay, so I wrote down a bunch of words so I wouldn't forget. So listen for these words, okay, because it's those type of words that are very inverted, almost like a mirror effect,
Right.
because they're words we've always used. And if you're really looking at true health, like true health where the body is healing itself, these are the words we would use. But right now they're being thrown around. And so people assume these are natural processes, but they are anything but natural processes. So the words are health span, which health span means what we've always said, you live to thrive or you live to survive.
Right.
You're alive, but you are so sick,
Yeah.
or you are living and super healthy till the last days of your life. That's health span. And
Right.
true
It's
health
kind of
span,
a nicer way of saying quality of life, but
right?
people associate quality of life with like end of life. So this health span is like the new friendly way of talking about that.
Right. So listen for that word, biohacking. Biohealing is a new one that I just heard. So people are saying, well, I don't do biohacking. I do biohealing, but they're still talking about the exact same thing. Um, Longevity medicine, regenerative medicine, more of a personal approach, which is what functional medicine has always said, it's personal
Right.
approach. Well, now this the therapeutics are saying the same thing. It's personal approach. They're throwing around the word epigenetics, which really epigenetics, we talk about that all the time. And this is different. Or beauty, youthfulness, aging in reverse, all of these things. So it makes you want to do it because it's about beauty. It's about, having this amazing body, being
Right.
youthful as you age, all of these things. So don't get caught up in that, is our point.
Right. Or you're comfortable with the words because you've heard them in this space before and they were coming from like our approach, root cause, truly looking at what's causing the problem and letting your body heal, creating that environment that lets you, age different biologically than your actual age.
Right.
Those things are there, but now they're using those and like epigenetics, we talk about that. And a lot of this biotechnology is based on that. But then the next step is completely different. It's going in different directions. So it's one of those things we've talked about this before. You can't just get comfortable with verbiage. You can't just get comfortable with a brand. You can't get comfortable with the product. You have to constantly be keeping up with things because they're always changing. Um,
Right.
yeah. So do
And
your
it's
research. Don't
essentially
just trust the word.
marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's essentially marketing in a way because we all want to look good. We all want to feel good. We all, you know, nobody wants to, you think about aging, nobody wants to be the little old lady. I mean, you just do.
Yeah.
You want to look and feel the way that you feel like you should, So
Yeah.
it's
You don't
really
want to be
caught up.
bedridden in a home for the
Right.
last 10 years of your life. You want to be, independent and doing things and enjoying that your health span.
Right.
um, so yeah, it's definitely a marketing gimmick, I guess. But it's really common. This is what happens in these cycles. But like
Mhm.
Kendra said, this one is kind of crazy how fast it's just
It
happened.
is
And I
crazy. Yeah.
think that because so many people in this space, like outside of conventional medicine, are hopping on this bandwagon, it's making it even more confusing for like the general public. And if you're watching us, if you're following us, you're probably in this group that doesn't want that type of thing. You want to understand so you can make those better choices. And this is making it really hard.
Right. And it's also tricky because it's, the natural practitioners, their patients or their clients that are coming to them are asking for this. They want to know about GLP-1s. They want to know, that this is what they want because human nature is always to go with convenience
Right.
and, they don't want to change. They don't want to do anything hard. And the easy way is always it must be a human quality where we always want to go the easy way. So I feel like the natural practitioners are kind of jumping on this bandwagon because of the words that are being used and they're
Yeah.
believing that this is a natural way to do things, but it's not. So the point of this podcast is to lay out for you why this is not a natural way
Right.
to do anything. It's like as far away from natural as you can. So if you think about biology, which is the study of life, right? So bio means life versus biotechnology. And remember, we've done several podcasts on synthetic biology.
Mhm.
Synthetic biology is biotechnology. It's the same
Right.
thing. So the mission statement of synthetic biology we've talked about, but it's also the same for biotechnology, is redesigning life and making it better. So remember, their idea is taking life, the most beautiful, precious thing there is, and redesigning it, reprogramming it, and making it better. And then
Right.
the other for biotechnology, so for these new technologies that are the therapeutics that we're talking about, the the statement for it is using new technologies to engineer and design smarter molecules that will allow it to command the new biology that was just just I can't even read my writing, discovered in the previous decade. So basically what they're saying is they figured out that they could redesign, they could take the human genome or the genome of anything and redesign it, right? So we've talked about that a lot. Even before that, that was GMOs. You know, it's kind of progressively changed the genome project, CRISPR technology, that kind of thing. So they're taking that technology now to command biology to do something that they want it to do. So that's what these therapeutics are. So if you really just listen to those two definitions.
Yeah, so basically they're telling you, hey, biology's been around a long time. We already knew all of this biological science, right? We had that information. And then technology, as we all know, has really exponentially grown in the last couple decades. And now they're saying, hey, we're at a point where we've got a harness on the technology that we can use it at a biological level in an affordable and wide scale way. Before it was, you hear biohacking in the last decade, that was always like these really rich, like Silicon Valley guys that were, biohacking.
Right.
And that's what you would imagine. And you're like, that, and everyone kind of thought, that doesn't seem very smart, but they're rich, so they can probably fix it if they screw things up. And now it's gotten to the point where they can manufacture and produce these products and systems, and even just the manufacturing of things has changed to where this is affordable and sometimes cheaper than the natural way of doing things. It's certainly a quick fix in what they're pushing right now. So you have to listen to these things. And remember, like, in the 40s after the World War, and we heard better living through chemicals. Remember that? And remember how that turned out. This is like the same cycle, just at a even crazier level. Like, we're not just taking products, we're taking genes. And we're doing things that are messing with our biology, or we're creating products from really interesting genetically modified things.
Right. And we're always way behind. So if you think about like what Jenny was talking about with, making life better with chemistry. Okay, so now we know however many years later that, 50, 60 years later, that these chemicals, a lot of them are now what we call forever chemicals.
Right.
They don't break down. They never go away. They're affecting the entire planet. I think most people understand that and know that. But
Right.
it's like old news if you think about it. They made those so long ago, and they're affecting us this way now. But what they're doing now is changing the genetic code.
Yeah.
Your DNA is your life. It's your life code. So they're changing the DNA, the genetic code of everything. There's no going back from that. You can't then change it. It's kind of like the forever chemicals. You just change the genetic coding of life.
There's no like undo button.
There's no undo button. So then think about the repercussions 10 years, 20 years, 60 years from now. There's no studying this. There's nothing. We have no, it's like this, the chemicals were a giant, science experiment. This is so beyond that. So just think about this. So our whole goal with this is we want you to really think about this. It's always about choice. Health freedom is about choice. You have the information, you choose. So we hope that you will take this information and choose not to take part in it. Because once you change your genetic expression, truly, if it's real epigenetics, you can change that. If it's rewriting your genetic expression, you can't change that. There's no going back. So, scary topic, big topic, but it always comes down to the very simplistic piece that you can choose not to take part. But you can only choose if you have the information, and that's what we're doing.
Yes.
Okay, so in that, what I just read to you about using new technologies to engineer and design smarter molecules. Okay, so just take that. Peptides, which is what is all the rage right now, injecting peptides. Peptides is a molecule. So that means they are taking this, designing smarter peptides, which means redesigning the genetic code.
Right.
So I don't care what natural practitioner you're listening to, if they tell you that's not true, it is true. It is true. And if you really research it on your own, you can
Yeah,
find
you can't take something that is, biologically created to do this one job, because peptides have jobs. That's what they're there for. You can't take it and then give it new instructions from an outside source, or build it from an outside source and then say that it is the same. Like it's not the same. It's now been changed.
Right. Exactly. And your body is not going to react the same.
Right.
So yes, we make peptides naturally. That's a big part of our biological process. Just one piece of our enormous biological process. But when you're introducing these newly designed peptides, it changes everything. Your body's not going to respond the same. It changes all kinds of pieces and parts. So I just wanted to say that, so therapeutics, they're also calling it precision therapeutics. But if you look at precision therapeutics, it equals biotechnology.
Right.
So if you think about, Ozempic is also a peptide, and I keep saying Ozempic, but we're talking about GLP-1s, right? So they're peptides, and they were pharmaceuticals. So now these new natural peptides, okay, maybe not all the pharmaceutical companies, some of them are producing them, but it's biotechnology companies
Right.
that are producing them. So, in all of our things that we talk about, we're always talking about sourcing, and a lot of times it's talking about foods sourcing. Where does it come from? Where does it processed? What is the process? Where does it ultimately come from? So you got to think about the same thing with these peptides. Where does it come from? So is it pharma or is it biotechnology? Either one, probably not a good idea.
Right.
And then and if you've listened to our synthetic biology podcast, I think we've talked about it several times now. You should go back and listen. But the peptide therapeutics are enabling precision design, engineering, and production of bioactive peptides. Does that sound like something you want?
Right. And then the idea of precision therapeutics. So therapeutics should be a therapy. We're having, there's something wrong with you. You use a therapy. It's not a surgery. It's not a medication. It's therapy.
Massage.
Right. So that's why they're using that word.
Right.
And then the precision is because it's for you. But how do they make it for you? It's because they're genetically modifying things to do one specific thing. They're not taking your own cells and then making them, better for you. That's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. So it's really tricky verbiage that they're using. And it's kind of like, do you want a food scientist creating your food, or do you want like a chef and a farmer creating your food? Do you want your body to create these things that are in your body, or do you want a biotech company to create these things?
Right. And if you think about too, again, it comes down to nobody wants to do the work. Nobody
Right.
wants to make the changes. They want the easy, quick fix. It's always the easy, quick fix, no matter what it is. But, the way they're marketing this is they're talking about as we age, our body stops making peptides. But it's
Right.
really as we get sick, as you are, getting chronically sick, as you're getting disease,
Right.
you are not making them. So we'll talk about that in a second too, but think of it that way. Just kind of keep that in mind. It's not that you're, because you're getting older, so now you need these synthetic ones. It's literally whether you're healthy or not at a natural level, kind of like what Jenni was talking about with the food. And here's the thing. So when they're using proteins, it always comes down to two processes, whether it's pharmaceuticals or this biotech or whatever it is. So the two ways you're getting your peptides this way is, and when I break this down for you, I'm sure you'll be able to understand why this is not a good idea. Okay. So they say it's natural, right? And that's why a lot of natural practitioners in the holistic space are jumping on board with this. But you either get it where the peptides are being injected or you're taking them orally or however they're getting in. So you're adding peptides into your body.
Right.
But where they come from, I didn't know this. I just learned this. So there are farmed animals, PHARMED, as opposed to FARMED. So farmed animals, and these farmed animals, they take their genes and they take human genes and they put the human gene into, say, a cow. They use cow, pigs, chickens. So they put the human genes into the cow's genes. So now you've got a cow that can produce a human biocompatible peptide because it is spliced with human genes. But then because it is farmed animals, they clone the animals so that they have an exact replica of the same animal. So all of the farmed animals are cloned after they change their genetic makeup with human makeup. And then they harvest from these farmed animals these peptides. And then that is what you're injecting into your body. Okay. So that's one source. You're either getting that source or you're getting mRNA technology, which is what the COVID shot was. And all of these natural practitioners, holistic practitioners were all on board with thinking that was a terrible idea. This is the same thing. So what it is, it goes into your genes, your cells, and programs your cells to produce more peptides. So it's basically genetic information that tells your body to produce them yourself. So either way, you have just genetically compromised your own cells.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is
It's
insane.
like it's a new set of instructions. So it's a cell from outside that is disguised to match your cells, and it has this new set of instructions, and then it teaches the other cells that are already there these new instructions that weren't meant to be there.
Right. So that's what the mRNA technology is. So it's already giving you your internal divine body these new instructions, right? Yeah. Which is clearly a bad thing. Yes. That's not the way the body was meant to run. And then the other way is, your cell has receptors on it. So now you've introduced these peptides from a cow that is genetically modified with human DNA that's been cloned, and those are going to now attach to the cell receptors, and now your body's not going to produce its own peptides. Right. So either way, it's just a giant mess.
I feel like people don't quite understand that process because they're like, oh, it's a biologically matching hormone that I'm taking, or now we're a biologically matching peptide that I'm taking. Like we're inserting these biologically matching things, but it's really at a much smaller scale, like an organ transplant. Like you're taking something from something else that sort of matches but is not from yourself, and you're putting it into your system. Now, on a big scale, an organ, what do? They look and make sure that everything is the same, right? It has to match. And then your body still will reject it. You have to be on all of these medications to make your body think that it's okay for that organ, even though that organ is there to keep you alive. Your body's still going to reject it. So we're doing this on this teeny tiny scale, hormones, peptides, all these other things that are coming out. And it's essentially the same thing. And you don't think about that reaction, that rejection, like what's going to happen at that level, you're just like, oh, I need more peptides now. I have them. It's great. There's going to be some side effects.
Right. It's kind of like, and I know we've talked about this before too. If you think about, so receptors on cells, it's like a keyhole in a
Mm-hmm.
key, right? So the same thing is for hormones. So, bioidentical hormones have been around for a long time.
Right.
It's the same idea. Or even, if you're taking something for your thyroid because your thyroid's not working, now you're taking
Right.
thyroxine or something to, you know, help your thyroid. It's the same thing. So it's always the idea of a keyhole. And then
Mm-hmm.
this key is floating around, which is the hormone or the peptide or the nutrient, whatever it is. And the only way it will attach to that cell receptor, which is the keyhole, is if it's the perfect fit.
Right.
So if something is reprogrammed, so it looks the same, which is what we're talking about, it's floating around and it will fit in there and it's a perfect fit. Well, okay, it fit. And so now it's a pretend peptide, which will make you feel better. But now
Right.
your body is going to go, oh, I don't need to produce these peptides anymore. Or same with
Right.
like a thyroid medication. Oh, I don't have to work anymore because I already have that, or a nutrient. Oh, I don't have to make that anymore because I already have that. So anytime you put something that is not truly biologically real,
Right.
compatible to your body will, it doesn't have to make those. So it will stop production, slow down production. Even with the cells, your cells are constantly, making new cell, um, what do you call them? What are we talking about? I just forgot the word.
Receptors?
Receptors. Yeah, but it will have less receptors if it feels like they're not even needed. So the body is always adapting. So you have to think about that from that end. So if you're putting in these synthetic of some kind peptides to be youthful, it's not going
Yeah.
to produce your real peptide. So just kind
Right.
of keep
It's
that in
kind of
mind.
it's like the human nature we said at the beginning.
Right.
We just take the easy way out. If
Mhm.
it's simpler and easier, we're going to default to that. Your body is the same way. If it doesn't have to put effort into that anymore, it's not going to. Also, it has like a limit, if there's enough of this thing already in your system, it's not going to make more of it. And you are putting that thing in from the outside. So think about how that works long term. Your issue is you're not creating enough naturally. So then you're bringing them in. And now you feel better because that synthetic, even if it's biologically perfect, it's still synthetic. Now you're creating even more of that same problem because you felt like it wasn't making enough on its own. Now it's going to make even less because it feels like, oh, I'm doing a good job. Look at that. Everything's where it should be. So, how are you ever going to fix the problem? You can't. You're making it worse.
Right.
Mm,
And that's the thing. So then, I mentioned in the beginning, think of it as biology as opposed to biotechnology, right?
right.
So human as opposed to transhuman. And whether you know about the transhuman agenda or not, it's a very real thing. And it's not future, it's right now. And anything that you're consenting to under this biotechnology side of things is you're just stepping right into that transhuman
Right.
agenda, and you want to hopefully remain human. And so
Just
if you
plain
break it
human.
down, what?
I said just plain human.
Pure
No,
human.
yeah, like no words before it or after it, just the word human.
Right, exactly. So if you break it down in like two columns, biology, biotechnology, and you take all of those words they're using, if you think about, okay, so here's another thing to think about. If you are sick, if you're starting to have symptoms, always you've got GI issues going on. So you'll end up, and that's just a piece of the puzzle, but you'll have leaky gut, you'll have dysbiosis, which is, infections and parasitic overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, things like that, which causes multiple issues, which then cause more of that breakdown. But it's the same with peptides because that's what we're using today, peptides. We're staying on the peptide train. But if you have GI issues going on of any kind, you're not going to produce as many peptides. And peptides come from our food. That's how our body makes peptides naturally in the first place. So if you're a healthy person, you're eating, really good sourced, good proportioned whole food, you're going to be making plenty of peptides no matter what your age is. Yes, things change as you age, but as long as you're healthy. But if you're not healthy, you're going to have those gut issues. You're not going to be able to break down the proteins into peptides. You're not going to be able to assimilate the peptides. And then when you don't have enough peptide production, it actually causes GI problems. So it's like a cyclical effect. One affects the other, and you're just going to get sicker and sicker. So, if you think about that, if you're using these biotechnology peptides and your body's not making as much peptides, and the reason you had not enough peptides was because you had the GI problems, you didn't fix any GI problems. No. You still got those going on. So it's still a Band-Aid fix. It's still just like pharmaceuticals. It's still just like conventional medicine. We talk about all the kind medications and surgery. It's still the same thing. They've just put this natural spin on it. Hopefully that makes sense. So ultimately, if you want to stay on the biology side of things, you literally have to get yourself healthy. And, we always talk about this. The way you do that is you have to first address the internal environment and fix that. And that would be the gut issues, among other things. And then fix what caused that in the first place, which is the external environment. That is the way that you truly get healthy. That is the way you truly turn on and off your epigenetics. That is the way you truly have.
It fixes everything.
It fixes everything.
It fixes everything. You
really have real longevity, real regenerative health. You're really biological aging instead of chronological aging. All the words they're using.
Yeah.
That is how you do it. And then you're heading towards health. Otherwise, you've got to remember that if you're using these other things, you are going to get sicker and sicker. It's going to come up and bite you in the butt. It just is, because you didn't.
And this is like, some people will come to this space and say, I'm eating real whole foods. Like, my diet is great. I do, the right amount of exercise. I've gotten rid of the toxins in my life, but I don't have enough peptides. My metabolism is slowing down. Like, I have all these issues. And it could be because you didn't reset your foundational health to begin with. And these gut issues, which is really where you need to start for everything, they can be passed on from birth. Like, your microbiome could have been crappy from the minute you entered this earth, because your mom's microbiome was crappy, or you were born cesarean, and you have all these, there's so many factors. But you can't just assume at this point in the world that, when you're born, that your foundation of health is where it should be. It's not. It's no longer like that. So you have to reset, create that healthy foundation, which starts in the gut. And then those things, like we were talking about, are what are going to help you be at this level of health. You're going to create the peptides. Your metabolism is going to be on point. You're going to be, aging in reverse naturally. So if you feel like you're doing all the right things and you still need to supplement, then you need to look at that foundational piece.
Right. There is no skipping that piece. We talk about that all the time. There's no skipping that piece. And everybody wants to skip the piece.
It's the hard piece.
You can't skip the piece, because at a natural level, we are life, right? We talk about that all the time. We are life. You can't separate yourself from life. We are life. So you have to fix that foundational piece.
Right.
And then you don't have to worry about all of this.
Yes.
So the reason people are jumping on the bandwagon is it's easy. It sounds like an easy, quick fix, but it is not. And it's very disturbing, to say the least, because like I said, there's no going back from this. I thought of a really good analogy the other day. Okay, here's two analogies. We always have analogies. First of all, this whole situation that we're talking about is kind of like if the fire alarm is going off in your house and you pull the batteries out of the fire alarm, the fire is still going. Your house is still burning down,
But that thing that's bothering you stopped.
right. So the alarm went off because you pulled the batteries out. Doesn't mean the fire went out.
Right.
It's kind of the same idea. And I just forgot the other great. Here's the other analogy I thought of the other day. So I was thinking like a puzzle. So if you picture you have a puzzle that you've put together and it's you, right? Okay, so here's me right here. It's a puzzle of me, my head. Um, and then you take some pieces out and you turn them around and it's maybe a different picture, but they still fit.
Right.
That would be more like the things people have been trying in the past. You take a medication for this, or you're using this fancy cream, or whatever it is. But I feel like, and this is just my weird analogy in my brain, but this is how it pictures in my head. So this biotechnology stuff is kind of like, or if you take a peptide that came from a cow that now has human DNA that has been cloned, if you picture me in the puzzle, but now I've got pieces taken out and they're just like black pieces, like there's nothing on it anymore. It fits into the puzzle, but there's nothing. It's like devoid of something. So I don't know, in my mind it's probably devoid of that human essence, that life essence that we talk about all the time, or something. But anyway, that's popped into my head the other day, and this is way out there probably for the podcast, but maybe that makes sense to you. It's just another step away from these treatments that have been going on up until now.
Right.
Now moving forward, it is so far beyond. You really, really want to stay away from this stuff.
Right.
So that's really the point of our whole podcast today. And if you want, you want peptides, you want collagen, you want to age in reverse and be beautiful and youthful and strong and healthy. Okay. If you think about, naturally, we get peptides from food, mostly animal sources. So it would be from your meat. Make sure that your meat is a really good local source, like we talk about all the time. Regenerative source. Make bone broth. Drink bone broth all the time. Great source of collagen and peptides. Right. Nuts, seeds, if they're really good sourced, not being sprayed with anything, that type of thing. And then get really healthy so that you can utilize that food.
Right. That's what I was going to say. And remember, it's not just eating the perfect diet, it's digesting the perfect diet.
Absorbing and utilizing it. Yeah. So those two things together sound simple. It is hard to get to that point.
It's hard work.
It's hard work, and you have to make lifestyle changes and really stick to it, but you can. And that is literally the only way to ultimately long-term make these for yourself, and you can. So hopefully that helped. So if you have questions about this really enormous sci-fi, but right now topic.
I feel like with these kind of topics, people probably didn't have a lot of questions coming into it. They're just like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. But we've provided a good amount of information. So hopefully
now you have all kinds of questions.
Hopefully this information makes sense. We laugh about all our analogies, but I feel like it is a really helpful way to take this big concept that doesn't make a lot of sense and make it into something that you can think about in your day-to-day in those consumer choices and lifestyle choices that you're making. Like that's the key. And if you aren't making choices, if you're like, I'm just going to not decide, then you're still making the choice to be a part of it. Let's think about it this way. There's 8 people and we're all on a bus, right? And then we're going to say, hey, the driver of the bus wants to just drive off the cliff. And like 3 people say, no, let's not do that. And then, two people say, "Oh, that sounds great." So now you've got, the bus driver, and then a couple other people just say, I don't want to be part of it. If the majority of the people voted to go off the cliff, you're still going to go with them.
Right. Exactly.
You can't opt out of these types of things in the world today. Like, if you want to go off grid and live like that, then maybe you can opt out of some of them. But I think if you're listening to our podcast, you're probably not off grid. So you have to make decisions. You have to have the uncomfortable information. You have to really advocate for yourself in order to keep your health and really your autonomy intact.
Right. But I do think this is a big part of this whole time that we're living in,
Yeah.
is it's kind of like people, everybody keeps talking about people wakening up, the big awakening, that kind of thing. And it really seems in my mind to come down to people waking up to the fact that they have to make their own choices.
Right.
And you have so much control in your own choice, whether it's consumer choice, what you consent to. I mean, just being consenting to this kind of stuff just because you don't want to look into it or want the easy way out, or just making choice, all of this. If we all just did that, like Jenny's analogy, everything would change. I mean, it really would,
Right.
because we just would say, no, thanks, and if everyone says no, thanks, then they're not going to do it right now. For the projection for 2026 is, I think I read $217 billion for this therapeutic industry.
Right.
So that $217 billion, because people are consenting and saying, yes, I'll do this, sign me
Right.
up. That's making $217 billion for some small amount of people that own these biotech companies.
Right.
So, if everybody said, no, not for me, then that projection would be zero.
Right. And then they wouldn't do it.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but I do think it's good. So we just, our whole goal is to put out this information so that then you can make your own choice, and hopefully we can change the tide on this stuff. And
Yes.
if you want to learn more and then help your own clients, start your own business or help your own clients, or if you're one of these natural practitioners that has been jumping on this bandwagon and now maybe is going, ooh, maybe that's a bad idea, our PHP certification might be for you.
Right.
Because this is the kind of stuff we teach, and then you can go out and really help people to make the decisions to live naturally, and heal and be healthy. That's our whole goal. Yeah.
Yes. So, as always, if this episode has resonated or if you found it very helpful, share, like, comment. We'd like to hear feedback. We like to know
And
people are
definitely
listening.
share, because everybody's jumping on this bandwagon. People need to know.
Yes. And I think that's all for today. So, yeah, this is a big topic. And like we've said during this podcast, we've talked about some of these topics before. We will keep talking about them. If you have questions, put them in the comments. We'll answer them. We'll probably talk about this again a lot.
Sure. It's
Gonna be big this year.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. Bye.
Bye, everybody.